Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to be in the first chapter in the book of Genesis. This is where it all begins. This is where the Bible begins, and the word Genesis itself translates as beginnings, and that's what takes us to our opening verse. There's not a whole lot of literary context to establish because nothing really comes before it. So we're going to be connecting the dots in creation. We're going to really be pointing the words out and explaining what each of them mean in as much detail as possible. We'd like to get it all the way to the end, so we're just going to hop right through it. So in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. So we witness the origin of four dimensions here. Time, that's beginning. Created, that's energy. Space, that's heavens, that's the Hebrew word for heavens. And earth is matter. So they all owe their and trace their origin to Elohim, which is a plurality. He's the one who created. When is beginning, and what is the heaven and the earth. Who, what, when, and what. And the Elohim is a plural form. It's translated as God in most Bibles, but in the Hebrew original, it denotes a plurality of figures, which we of the new dispensation understand to be Yahweh the Father, Yahshua the Son, and the Ruach Kadesh. And the Spirit is explicitly mentioned as an agent in creation. In the next verse, we'll be covering that word Ruach is the Hebrew for spirit. And but we know from the fuller revelation of right here, John 1:1, same beginning. In the beginning the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. So that's a reference to Yahshua, but the Old Testament doesn't mention him or indicate him at all. So there is schools of thought which interpret this in a more militantly monotheistic lens than the plural and diverse form we personally translate it as, and that would be most Christians do too. So, and the earth came to be formless and empty, and dark was on the face of the deep, and the spirit of Elohim was moving on the face of the waters. So the earth had no definition, no form, no reality or being or existence, because it was empty and formless, and it was subsumed in darkness. Darkness was the original state at the beginning of creation, when it kind of what cosmologists might anticipate as the Big Bang. We recognize it as not being an explosion of matter, but an invisible being willing everything that is visible into existence. And the earth is a lot of the focus is on the creation to this pale blue dot in the vast infinitude of space. So of the heavens and the earth, we read a lot of the earth in the 6 days of creation. So the first day of creation actually begins, we've marked them to the side, verse 3, and Elohim said, let light come to be, and light came to be. So he spoke it into existence. His word is the creative power, which not only brought light into being, he said it and it came into be. It was seriously that simple. So his word is a creative agent and power, and the word also has a personification in the Messiah, Yahshua, who is equal claim to Elohim. But we read that the power, he spoke creation into existence in passages such as Psalms 33, 6, and 9. And so light is the element of divinity. It is light and it is good. And that's what he says right here. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good. And Elohim separated the light from the darkness. So good, that's the first of 7 times we read in this chapter the word good, where he declares his creation good. So everything which emanates from him, who is perfect and wholly good, is good in itself. So that word, in creation's pristine form, all was well, all was good. There was no sin, there was no Satan, at least not yet. A lot of theologians reasonably posit that the fall of Lucifer occurred after everything. It was very good, so at the close, so in between the fall of man came the fall of Lucifer, and Lucifer is synonymous with darkness, sin, so his kingdom is represented by darkness, but Elohim created it, and as such he has the authority to name it. So by naming it, he's indicating it as his possession. It's his to name. He leaves the animals to be named by Adam, the creation, who's not named, but he's the mention of man is mentioned. Let us make man. So that's the 26th verse. That's on the 6th day. We'll get to it when we get to it. But night and day have their origin, and so Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, day one. So on the first day of creation, there was a light that rose, and eventually they're going to take into form of the sun and the moon, which are not mentioned, but they are referenced in the 14th verse, I believe. We'll get to that when we get to that. So day one, he created the day and the night. So he created, they were separate by span of the range of the day. So the morning was devoted to light, and the night was devoted to night to dark. And Elohim said, "Let an expanse come to be in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So this, he created the sea. Now he's on earth, which, remember, it's formless and void. So the sea, a flat seed, was perhaps the original water that he was working from and molding with, to the ocean, whose layers of complexity are such that we actually know more about outer space than we do our own ocean. So this is kind of where it all began, and he said it. So he called, said, let it, said, it came to be. So it came to be so. And Elohim made the expanse and separated the waters which were under the expanse from the water which were above the expanse, and it came to be so. So his word is as good as gold. He says, and it came to be so. He says, and it came to be so, and it came to be. So we witness his word is a creative agent whose power stems from him. So what he said came into be in the 6th verse, came into be in the 7th. And Elohim called the expanse heavens, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the 2nd day. So I actually jumped far ahead of ourselves. I attributed night and, day. Evening has, most important is the heavens are created here. This is the creation. Now when we think of the heavens and the earth, so much attention and detail is given to the earth. The heavens are given really one day here and one day here and one day in the 4th. But it's mostly about earth. And that concludes the 2nd day. Moving on to the 3rd day, we read, "And Elohim said, Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it came to be so." So just like that, with the magic wand of a word, the continents and the seas are distinct, permanently so, on the earth that he created. He wished it and willed it into existence. So the entire shape of the world as we know it owes its origins to this date in this chapter. And this is the 3rd day, remember. "And Elohim called the dry land earth, and the collection of the waters he called seas. And Elohim saw that it was good." It's the 2nd time we read that word, good. So once more, remember the number 7. There were 7 days in creation in the Hebrew numerology. 7 was the number of divine perfection, and much of that rootage can be traced to here because he created it in the 7 days. So that's just a hint of a divine pattern in this message. So he calls it, he created it, so he's reserved the right and power to call it what he wishes, and he chooses to call it earth and the sea. "And Elohim said, Let the earth bring forth grass, the plant that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. And it came to be." So what we have here is in fact the first form of life, which are the vegetative grass, the vegetables, which lay seed after its own kind. So here the creative process, he created something original, but everything he created in creation, in nature, he endowed with reproductive capacities, so it fulfills its function when it yields fruits according to its own kind. That's what the animals do. They make more of its own after its own kind. So once he was created, all nature was left to its own curse course, and it came to be so. So just like that, there's suddenly life on the planet, and it comes from a living, loving, intelligent being who is wise enough to design the strategy of creation, powerful enough to execute it, and capable of being everywhere at once in order to make it all happen. And the earth brought forth grass, the plant that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. For the third time, we read that that was good, so that because Elohim created it and it emanates from him, and his creation is an expression of his goodness and his motive. He doesn't create from any necessity or emergency. He creates us because he longs for our company. He really loves us, so we are the pinnacle, the pinpoint, the highlight of creation, and ours takes place on the sixth day. And there came to be evening, and came to be morning, the third day. So on the third day, that just wraps up the third day. There's a cycle in motion, and it's the light has fallen at day and night accordingly. So in the 14th verse, let lights come to be in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs in appointed times and for days and years. So lights, plural, he spoke light, singular, into existence, but now we read of plurals. So these lights are the stars, which are infinitely more expansive than planets in terms of size and extremity of conditions, but their purpose is to separate the day from the night and to leave signs in appointed times. Now, he warns the nation of Israel, to whom this was written, immediate audience, that not to engage in the practice of astrology, which was to trust and rely on the patterns in the sky for your fate and moral decisions. So that was one of the forbidden practices, of which you read of in Deuteronomy 18:9 through 13. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heaven, to give light on the earth. And it came to be so. So once more we witness that he wished it and he willed it. So that's came to be so. Came to be so. Once more, his word is as good as gold, and it came to be so. We read right there, came to be so. So that's what we witness once more. So the stars are permanently stretched in the heavens above to give light on the earth. So earth is kind of the center of his creative attention. So it's all set up to give this pale blue blot the only inhabitable planet for life form, uniquely amongst the stars as far as we know, but we haven't explored the infinitude of the universe. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night and the stars. So this lesser light is the moon, which orbits our planet. It is in size relation to planets, what planets are to stars, but it does provide us the light at night, whereas the sun performs that service for us throughout the day, and it goes in cycles and repetitive, but they were set in motion, and they all conform to a perfect law born on the perfect mind of a creator who is perfect in every way, shape, and form. So everything that's imperfect in creation kind of sets in when man gets created. We throw it into a cosmic disequilibrium of sorts. So man, that's, the world is beautiful but has a disease called man, so it doesn't take us long to kind of set the necessity for the path and plan of redemption in motion with Adam's fall, which was precipitated by Lucifer's. And Elohim placed them in the expanse of the heaven to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. It's the fourth time we witnessed that word. It is good. It is always good. So, yeah, they're over here somewhere. It was good. And, yep, right there. It was good. So that's the fourth time. And once more, it is good because he is good. So everything which flows from his creative essence is as good as from whom it came, in its pristine form before it was marred and disfigured by human sin. And there came to be evening,